Good evening, good evening, good evening. When you need a last minute kick of the ball victory and you can't show up because you have a basketball practice, then you call one of two people. You call Troy Parrott or you call me. Troy Parrott's out celebrating still, probably on Bookfast, as we were maybe discussing before the show went on air. So you got me, Macca, back for one special appearance. But quite happy to do so, given the two lads that I'm going to talk to tonight, Glenn and Sully. It's been a while, but I'm glad we get to do this show together again. How are we, boys?
Good. It's been a good couple of weeks for me, Macca, as we'll discuss. I'm feeling great.
I've left my TV off for the last few weeks.
Probably a good idea. I won't have to do the same for Liverpool now as well. Not much happening. It's International Week, but this is what we will talk about tonight. We will talk about the International Week and how it's gone, especially with the new convoluted European qualification set up. We'll talk about the way the game is going tactically and who's benefiting from it, especially some of the, let's say, lower income teams doing quite well by doing things that were done since the 80s, otherwise known as the fundamentals of the game. And then we'll have a look ahead to the weekend's games as the real football returns, and we'll have a look at Tonali picks. I'm selfishly going to start with Troy Parrott, as mentioned before, and his fantastic hat-trick against Hungary. I think that knocked them out of the World Cup. And puts us into the playoff in the weirdly convoluted semi-finals, final weird thing that they're going to do. But also having beaten Portugal a couple of days before that, 2-0. Ireland coming into their own a little bit after a disastrous start to the campaign. But the key thing I want to talk about, at least kind of the theme of the show, and we'll talk about England. We'll talk about the US men's national team. Did they play, or are they playing tonight? I think so, maybe.
Yeah, they were up, I think, 3-1 last
night.
Yeah.
But a good result there the other day, I believe. I haven't been able to keep up with it. And England, of course, doing fantastic under Tuchel. But the thing being, as an Irish fan, complaining that our Icelandic manager, who did a great job with Iceland, but insisting on playing out from the back, and it not having much joy. And then the second half, we just start leathering the ball into the box, putting the Hungarians under pressure, and lo and behold, we get two fantastic goals. Is it a case, as so often happens, that international football shows us the next trends that are going to happen in the game? Maybe a little bit reverse because the Premier League seems to be doing it. But Glenn and Sully, we see this idea of, like, we're not going to try and build our way into the box anymore. Let's just leather it in, because nobody has 6-foot defenders anymore. They all want to play on the carpet. Are we seeing a resurgence of what was described as 1980s football? But to be fair, I grew up with 1980s football and it was bloody exciting, so I'm not complaining. But are we seeing a return? Is the tiki-taka era about to be declared null and void for the future?
What do you reckon, Sally?
I was going to like
any of you.
Sure. Like, hey, if it's working for Ireland, it's working for me. Like, I gotta say, I think that, the tiki-taka was that Spanish dynasty right there in the mid 2000s, and I think we've almost moved on to like tiki-taka almost 2.0 with just the amount of rotations, the amount of different formations you set up you set up on the pitch, whether you're attacking or defending. I think it has gotten very, very complicated, and I think some of these players just want to go back to playing schoolyard ball. Like, and this is talking out my ass. Like, I have nothing to back this up, as with most things that I say. But one of the things that I was almost wondering about is, I wonder if we're getting sort of this resurgence because you have so many teams, like your Chelseas, like your Cities, like your Real Madrids, like your PSGs, who have all of these players on the bench and they don't get any reps, they don't get any runs, and those are players who are not being necessarily called up to these World Cup teams because there's no film on them. And so you're almost calling up for your squad, I don't want to say like a B team, but you're calling up a team with a different mentality. You're calling up a team that is probably more accustomed to playing in a system like that, in a 90s or 80s system, than somebody who's come up through these unbelievable academies and then gets poached when they're 20 years old, 90 pounds, and then they sit on the bench. So you're seeing players who are getting a lot of playing time without necessarily going that route. And it'll be interesting to see if there is any correlation between that. But I mean, that's what Scotland and Ireland scream to me with their teams. Their teams, I mean, Scotland today, just a bunch of dogs, just dogs out there. And I wonder if it has something to do with, hey, guys, we're not going to overburden you in the game. Go out there and win, leather the ball, put a tackle in. It's like you're going to work. You're not out there for a photo shoot. You're going to go do a job. And so I am interested to see if that trend kind of continues. I think Pep ball is very much done. Pep ball is on its way out. I think and I don't even know if you could call it the same like Simeone ball, because I don't think it is like an ultra defensive the way Simeone plays, but it's almost a hybrid of those two. It's a rough physical style of play, but you're also going to get these goals out of it, and a lot of these like blue collar goals. I wish we could turn 6 years off Jamie Vardy's career. I think he would be having a great time playing in this era right now. So we'll see what happens, but it'll be I think you are right, Maka. I think there is something to be said. In the words of Bob Dylan, the times they are a changing, and I think we're getting back to sort of a more blue collar mentality with the players. Maybe not management, maybe not with managers, but I think players are going to take that approach a little bit more leading into the World Cup and then post World Cup.
Glenn, obviously being Irish, I take a little bit of an interest, at least in Celtic Football Club up in Scotland. And obviously Brendan Rodgers left them a couple of weeks ago. Martin O'Neill comes in as an interim manager. And one of the things, because being a Liverpool man and actually liking Rodgers as a coach, even if he is a bit of a David Brent as a personality, but you get the impression sometimes as you see his kind of success always starts to peter out by the end of the second year. It's almost like players just don't like playing that style of football. Like it's almost like a coach's style, that cerebral kind of death by possession kind of let's keep it going around and moving around the back. To an extent, correct me if I'm wrong, we talked about when I was here last, Keith Andrews trying to maybe do a little bit of that, and it seems like he's gone the other way almost. He's kind of like taking advantage of the long throws, taking advantage of the quick transitions. It is a player's game essentially. So is it the case, as maybe Suddy said, is it the case that maybe the players are going, look, we don't want to spend 50% of the time just behind our own half, moving the ball from left to right? We're not like we've seen graphics on the Thursday night pod from Liverpool games where there was no pass between the left back and the left winger. Like Kerkez, there was 2 games where Kerkez and Gakpo had no passes between them whatsoever, but there was a ton of them between Virgil van Dijk and Ibu Konate. The players have to get bored of that, don't they? I mean, the game's about scoring goals and getting a bit of glory, as Danny Blanchflower once said. And you don't get that by winning the possession in your own half, do you?
Well, I guess ultimately it's just about winning the game, isn't it? Right, Mac? I don't think at the end of the day, fans or even players to that regard are gonna care how they get the result they want to get. But obviously we are seeing a trend towards more direct, arguably Route 1, League 2 associated style football. That is really underselling it to some extent, because you do forget these are Premier League quality players playing this style of football, right? So these are elite players who are in the top whatever micro percentage of players in England who have ability with the ball at their feet and in the air, right? So for me, it's a tactical decision, at least for Andrews and some other teams like Ireland in the second half. It's a tactical decision to put teams who have in some ways infinitely more wealth of resources than you, right? Who can hoard players, right? All the players that thrive under this kind of ticky-tacky adjacent system, right? Those technically sound players, small, low center of gravity, very, very fluent, right? You think about the Spanish team 10 years ago, you think about, Pep Ball at the start. You need a certain caliber of player to pull that off. And as in many walks of life, not just football or soccer, you see a gulf between the highest and the lowest, even in the context of a single league. So you're going to get teams, and this goes for nations as well. Nations like Ireland and Scotland, who cannot compete with resources with a country like England. You really have to make the most of the players you have and really maximize, stretch that squad as far as you can. Now, if you're a team like Brentford or whoever else, or you're a nation like Ireland, it probably makes more sense to be a bit more direct and use a bit of your pace up front, right? Whether that's Para or Thiago or whoever else, right? And just put the centre-backs under pressure, because you'll get some teams that can defend all day long, right? They thrive on high balls. There are some centre-backs who are born to just win the ball in the air. Gabriel, Saliba, Van Dijk in his prime, which is arguably still now, but certainly last couple of years. Vincent Kompany, right? These are players that thrive on the ball, getting into them. But the second there's a bit of pressure in a game, you saw the Hungary team fold under pressure, right? You saw the amount of pressure. I know they were player down and stuff, but you saw the pressure that Scotland heaped on Denmark because they were able to be a bit more direct. I think it's just a tactical decision that suits the resources, and it has to be a method of addressing golf's disparities in quality, right? That Danish team today on paper should comfortably beat Scotland, right? Højlund, Eriksson on the bench, Damsgaard. You've got players who are real quality on there. And that's not to say that Scotland have some players that are very good. But I think it just makes sense to adapt your game. Like, what is the point in a team playing ticky-tacky, slow-paced, build-up football when if you're going to go toe-to-toe with an opponent that can do it better, they'll just beat you? And you saw that, right, Macca, with Sunderland last year. Russell Martin, the reason Russell Martin has failed pretty dramatically at Southampton and now at Rangers, for your comparison to Celtic, is because it feels like in some ways he's this kind of wannabe progressive manager, right? Has a vision for football. But as Sully was kind of addressing, that vision feels like a vision of about 3 or 4 years ago at this point, right? So he's almost really trying to force his team to play a very rigid style of football that does not suit the players, does not suit their standard of football. And the players don't seem to like it. It was a mess at Rangers. It was obviously completely inappropriate with the players he had at Saints. So if you're a player, if you're a manager, and you think, wow, if we have someone who has a long throw, we have tall centre-backs, we have a physical forward like a Thiago who can just put centre-backs under pressure, that's got to be the best way to maximize your resources, right? And turn throw-ins into corners. That's a huge way of maximizing resources. That would be my approach. If teams like Brentford could play ticky-tacky football, I wouldn't mind that. I wouldn't mind watching our centre-backs pass it around. Wow, that would be great, comparing to some of the dross I've watched at Brentford. But it just makes sense. And that's why you're seeing teams like Ireland and Scotland beating opposition with players like Soboslai, Kirkes, again, Eriksson, whoever else, right? Because they're maximizing their resources. That's what it is to me. It just makes sense. It's an economic decision as much as a kind of cultural footballing one.
And do you think that maybe, even to the extent of Keith Andrews at Brentford, the way he's kind of torn things around after what looked like it could be a dodgy start, I think you look like you're actually in safe hands now by the way he's making his decisions. But it's kind of like there was a culture of management where you had to be progressive. You had to be following the Pep Guardiola. You wanted the respect of your peers. I think that's partly Brendan Rodgers' problem, is he wants to be seen to be doing the modern thing. And then you have somebody like Tony Pulis, say, who I love to bits. Like, I love Tony Pulis, but doesn't care about that. I'm here. I'm paid to win games. I'm paid to train players to win games. So that's what we're going to do. There's no, and even to an extent, so Eddie Howe, he plays passing football, but I wouldn't say it's tiki-taka football. And he certainly used Isak way better than Arne Slot seems to be using them right now. But it's just, if you can play, you play. If not, you do what you need to do to win the game. And maybe we're seeing the end of that cultural thing about managers. They're now realizing, well, if we keep trying to get Harry Maguire to play passing football from the back, I'm going to lose my bloody job. So, get your head on it, Harry. Do some marking, and that's all I care about. Do you think there's going to a cultural sea change now where the realities of professional football are starting to hit some of these managers?
I'm kind of surprised we didn't hit this cultural touch point way sooner. I mean, for the last, as long as I've been alive and following the game, it's been a player-driven sport, and it's only increasing in terms of player-driven. The players are the ones on your banners. The players are the ones on your marketing stuff. For a lot of these managers, you don't have a ton of these prestige managers anymore, like where it's, hey, if we bring this guy in, he's going to solve all of our problems. No, it's way more about, we need to bring in the right players to get the job done. And so I 100% think that is the case until we get the next, Wonder Boy, the next Pep, the next Jose, whoever it's going to be. Somebody is going to turn this trend around. But right now, there just aren't any of those people. It doesn't seem to me like there's a ton of young, up-and-coming managers taking over teams. It's one of the problems like the NFL has, just retreading coaches over and over again, and the product never changes. But I do think we are at a pivotal point in where managing is going to have to take a back seat to the actual players on the field, even if those just by nature of how this game is marketed and how, Glenn, you were saying this is an economic decision. The business of soccer, nobody buys a Jason Tyndall warm-up jacket. People buy jerseys.
Well, Jason Tyndall does,
but he gets them free.
And all his family for Christmas. All his family.
He also buys them.
But yeah, so like I do think we are headed much more in we already are in a player-oriented system, and I think it just matters how much the role of the manager is diminished. I mean, a lot of these older guys, they want to kind of finish with the international schedule. I mean, look at Ancelotti, look at Scolari when he retired with Brazil, Klinsmann. These are guys who want to go to the international system or the international game because it is a much less taxing schedule. So that's where we kind of have all the old heads, it seems like, and everybody who's left over is kind of just figuring it out as they go along.
Let's kind of mishmash it because we should mishmash the whole two first topics, so we may as well keep doing it. The International Week in general,
the American Scouser Remix podcast.
The Remix podcast, that's the one. But like, if you're selling the international game, Glenn, that Hungary Ireland game is one of the ones you would sell it with to the, let's say, the uneducated, soccerly uneducated American. That goal from Scotland today with the fourth goal over was it Kenny McLean with the long from his own half, kind of, that's what you want to sell. That is the way to do it, though, isn't it? American fans, correct me if I'm wrong, Sonny, as well, but American fans want excitement. It's a high score. All the sports are high scoring. Maybe not hockey, but hockey's the fourth sport for a reason. Baseball, not as high scoring, but it's dramatic. A home run is an achievement. You want to see runners on all the bases. The big home run hit, everybody runs in. Somebody starts a fight. I don't know why. The big league shoes were spilled on the ground or something like that. I don't know what it is.
Unwritten rules.
But you want if you want to sell the game, that's what you have to sell it on, isn't it? It's that drama, not 1-0, 79% possession. That's not going to sell the game, is it?
No.
Well, yeah. Oh, you go. Sorry.
No, go, Glenn. You're up.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, you're not just selling the scoreline with these games, right, Mac? What I think stands out and something I think matters to American fans when they're experiencing a sport, maybe it's obviously incredibly big here now domestically, but maybe they're not as familiar with. Something that I think is very marketable and very hard to market is authenticity. I think that is an extremely, extremely important commodity, unfortunately. And what you got with these two games, right, was an abundance, like an intense ball of just visceral, passionate energy from both fan bases, right? Yes, Maka, that was complemented by two extremely entertaining games with extremely dramatic endings, and that tied into it. Maybe it wouldn't have been quite the same if it wasn't that this last gasp winner, but the noise you saw, yes, it helped that Scott McTominay scored one of the best goals in Scottish history. Yes, that helped. But the noise when that goal went in, right? And again, whenever Ireland scored, right? The away end, that has such an energy and such a pureness to it that honestly, Premier League games with the stratification of fans, which again is starting to echo for very sad reasons, starting to echo American sports stadiums more than it is English stadiums of 20 years gone by. The stratification and commodification of British football means that those moments that are just euphoric and every single person in the stadium in the same end is feeling the same thing, they are so rare. And I will challenge both to find a moment this season in the Premier League that matches energy wise what we just saw in the last 48 hours in the kind of international sphere. Sure, you've got moments, Aguero last minute, you can have countless moments of big goals, big moments, but what I think was especially like sellable from what we saw in the last couple of days was just the emotions, authentic emotions from the fans. You just can't make that up. And you're just simply not going to get that if Man United beat Fulham away. Or, even some derbies in the Premier League are just ever so slightly watered down now. You just are not going to get this unification of emotions. And yes, that was absolutely accelerated by such drama and such moments. But that's what you're really introducing people to this weekend. Look at the way these fans cheer on their nation, because some of my favorite moments in sport, across every sport I like, have been England in the Euros or World Cup. As a fan, watching it on TV with my friends in local pub. So times that by 100 if you're in the stadium, and then show it to some Americans and say, hey, this is what soccer means to people in Europe. And this is what it should mean to you potentially in the future, right? I think it was incredible. So for me, the selling point was fans. And it helps when your friend Maka bags 5 goals in 2 games. That doesn't hurt things.
So yeah, one of the things, it seems crazy that when the Premier League was getting a grip on things in this country with NBC, I think took over. I can't remember when NBC took over, but what I'm talking about is the Watford-Leicester Championship playoff game. That was the most talked about game on any practice field I was on that week, and probably for a couple of weeks after.
Amazing.
And it wasn't even a top division game. But the sheer, as Glenn says, the sheer passion of, number one, Troy Deeney when he scored that goal, probably because he didn't think he'd ever score a goal that good. But the sheer, like, if you were to explain to American fans watching soccer for the first time and say, that's not even the top division, that'd be like almost like the minors. I can't really figure out the American equivalent of the championship in the American sports because there's no promotion, relegation. But that, this isn't even the top league, and look at how like passionate those Watford fans are and how devastated those Leicester fans are. That's what the game means. We could probably show League Two playoff championship in exactly similar type of scene, but that's really what it's about, isn't it? It's about making football exciting. Number one, for the players, as you say. Number two, for the fans, as Glenn says, and that's the package, isn't it? It's not Ronaldo's playing in the Premier League. It's not Salah's playing in the Premier League. It's not Pep Guardiola is managing in the Premier League. It's that combination of the fans and the players and the excitement and drama that comes with the game.
So, I mean, what I would say, the only 2, and I'm gonna name 2. The only 2 sports that even come close to the passion levels of of what we saw this international break. The only 2 things that come close. I'm going to give an honorable mention to the Buffalo Bills, because Bills Mafia, they're incredible. That's what they do. But in terms of entire sporting cultures, the only 2 that come close are college football and college basketball. And there's reasons for this. It's because those schools represent tight-knit geographic areas. That is something you cannot undersell. Having, who was it? Luton. Luton having their stadium where you had to walk up some Grand's fire escape to get into it. Everybody has that shared experience. Like, you can look out your front door. Hey, there's the stadium. There's where my team plays. College football and college basketball are that way as well, especially for states in this country. I don't often like to mention, but Alabama. Alabama does not have a professional sports team. They arguably have the greatest rivalry in college sports with the Iron Bowl every year. I mean, I watch that Watford Leicester City game frequently when I'm having a bad day. But real close behind it is the Iron Bowl from 2012, I want to say, with the kick six, where there was a missed field goal returned all the way. And it's because these fans have a proximity to the team. They have a connection in their lives to the teams. The reason pro sports in this country don't have, and I don't know if this is an issue across the pond. Again, I'm sort of speaking as the only American on American Scouser today, the resident American. But do you guys have blackout rules in England?
I mean, I don't know what you would call it blackout rules, but there's the 3 o'clock rule. Like, you can't show 3 o'clock Premier League games on TV. Or
really?
championship games as well, maybe, I think, because it's supposed to encourage people to go to the stadium to watch the games, but not in markets the way you have here, because it's not big enough.
Right. Well, okay. So living in Chicago right now, Chicago is a mess right now because we can't have Comcast, and I can't remember all the cable companies, but basically the Chicago Bulls and the Chicago Blackhawks are on their own channel that you need to either have an app on your phone, you can't stream it on your TV, or you need to go buy an antenna for. So the commodification of our sports is decades ahead of what it is for the Premier League, and it's killing those sports. The Bulls have been fantastic this year. The Bulls have been wildly entertaining. I haven't watched a single Bulls game because I'm not getting a fucking antenna. That's not happening. The Blackhawks, we have one of the most exciting players in the country, Connor Bedard. Unbelievable player. I'm not watching these games because they're not on TV. Like, that is a massive, massive issue in generating energy, generating passion, and Americans' attention spans are not very long. Like, we've been having fast food for a very long time. It's in our genetics at this point, and it's a real issue for our attention spans. But I mean, I would say those are the biggest problems with trying to generate. Like, you need to have a tight knit area. Even talking about rivalries, talking about derbies in some of the sports. The Chicago Blackhawks, historically, the biggest rival is the Detroit Red Wings. These are two teams that would go to war, absolutely hated each other. They did conference realignment. They realigned how the divisions worked. Red Wings ended up in the East. Blackhawks ended up in the West. They don't meet for meaningful hockey unless it's the Stanley Cup final. So it's a symptom of a lot of problems, and I know this is super rambling, but we have a massive issue in this country that I really hope, with passion for sports, that I hope we never see in the Premier League, because again, that's sort of why I cheer for a team like Newcastle. Newcastle, I've been made fun of my entire life because we've never put out a great product, but then you watch an away game, or you watch a home game at St. James's Park, and it's like, that's why I'm a fan. I'm wearing Hajduk Split today. When my wife and I went on our honeymoon to Croatia, every slab of concrete within a 40-mile radius of Split had Hajduk Split iconography all over it. All right, whether it was the club's logo, whether it was, fans who had been killed in violence in the stadiums, all this sort of thing. You don't see that with American sports. You just don't see that, and that's one of the things you can't replicate. You cannot replicate or force authenticity. You either have it or you don't, and the vast majority of teams, and I think really people in this country, lack that to a certain extent.
Glenn, Sonny hits on a point there, though. There may be the 3 o'clock, at least free to air blackouts for the 3 o'clock games over there, which is the main games. That would be 10 a.m. over here, Eastern time. But you could still watch them in the pubs, and that kind of replicates almost the stadium atmosphere, doesn't it? You can go with your mates to your local pub, watch your team, celebrate, go mad with 20 complete random strangers that are in that part of the lounge that you're in at the time, and then go into another part of the bar, and then your team scores another goal, and then you'll hug another 20 complete another strangers. But the atmosphere is there. Whereas here, like, I know people who are from the East Coast, have never lived on the West Coast, but they're San Francisco 49er football fans. And you can't really, I mean, I say that ironically as an Irishman supporting Liverpool in America. But at least if I was living in Ireland, it's a 45-minute plane ride over to go and see Liverpool if I want. And there's also, I think we've talked before, if you look at the Irish fandom of British clubs, it's Liverpool, Manchester, Newcastle, to a smaller extent, and Arsenal for sure, because there's huge Irish communities in those cities, immigrant communities. So you identify with those. Celtic, obviously, because it's the Irish Catholic club in Scotland. But you don't really see that, do you, in anything other than college sports, maybe, because I know a lot of people who wouldn't watch NFL, but who went to, say, Rutgers, or went to, say, I can't think of any other colleges that are like, let's say, even Iona College in New York. But they'll be fans of those sports teams for life, because that's their alumnus. That's their alma mater, and that's where that connection comes. It's not quite the same if the team you support is 3,500 miles across the other side of the country, really, is it?
Definitely. I mean, the closest experience I've had in Iowa City to watching, an England game, or like a Liverpool game in a bar in Liverpool, would be when the Iowa women's basketball team made that fantastic run to the finals 2 years ago, right? And I was watching. It was, it was the semifinal. I think it was. And the whole city was at the bars, at home. Everyone was watching it, right? And when they did win, you have this incredible celebratory kind of city atmosphere. And conversely, when we lost the final, you had this kind of funeral wake feeling in the city that you can only really get, that I've only really gotten in any really intense way, was when England lost the Euros finals to Italy on penalties, and 2021, I think that was. And that, I was in London with some friends that night, watched it with them. Amazing experience up until the end. And London the following morning was just like, something was wrong. It was very dystopian. So yeah, I think it's a great point.
So like any other day in London then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was great. And everyone was sad. But yeah, I mean, there is something about place. I think the kind of conclusion we have, which makes a lot of sense, is that those geographical ties, which fold into family ties, right? Which fold into community. Those are the ways to build a sustainable fan base that is, through generations, passionate about the same team, right? These kind of pop-up franchises, this is what makes it difficult for, if you're growing a different sport, whether it's cricket in the US or soccer in the US, whatever it is difficult to build a fan base with such longevity, with which, if a goal goes in, Macca, if you're back home, and a Liverpool goal goes in, you hear it on the TV, and 3 or 4 friends text you about it, right? And you immediately got people to talk about, right? That kind of close-knit level of community that, for me, and probably similar for both of us, is one of the best parts of loving sports. Because take away that community, what do you have? You're just like these individuals just kind of cheering on a kind of, corporate franchise. There's nothing very romantic or exciting about that, right? That's kind of just ultimately, a kind of exchange, right? You're just a customer. So that's the difference, right? It's whether you're customers or communities. And I think with college sports, and obviously with clubs and nations in soccer, you are communities first, customers second. And the Premier League gets it wrong, because quite often fans are customers first. As much as they wouldn't want to be, that's the move we're making when you squeeze fans out of going to Anfield.
We'll wrap this section up because that I think Glenn makes a good point there, and I think it's something that's it's a pointer towards the American sporting experience, is that other than the Olympics and the Winter Olympics, there isn't really an opportunity for Americans to cheer on their nation, really, is there? And that's what maybe American sports are missing. We can all look forward to at least World Cup playoffs or World Cup qualification. And if you're a team like Ireland who used to be a regular qualifier for tournaments and haven't done so in a while, and then have that opportunity to do so again, it raises everybody's spirits, because that Manchester United fan that you don't like in the pub every other week, he's now your friend because you're all supporting the same team. But there isn't an NFL equivalent, there isn't a Major League Baseball equivalent, really. I know there's like all-star games, so it's not quite the same. But that's a missing element, isn't it, from the American sporting experience outside of the Olympics?
100%. I mean, we just congratulate ourselves for everything else. Like we don't really need to pat ourselves on the back for sport. But I mean, one of the real problems with with American soccer right now, I would say, is everybody has always talked about the nepotism, the pay to play system, like those points have been beaten over the head. The real issue, like why no American is really caring so much about this cycle, is we're already in. There's no like, hey, I gotta watch these games, I gotta learn these players. There isn't any of that. Number two, the only news you ever get out of the American camp is some drama that you're just like, I hate all these people. Like, I dislike this team. So this is going to be a rough year for American fans, because American fans do not deluded Steve. I think Poch is collecting a paycheck. I think the first chance he gets to head back to Europe for club, I think that is going to be his move. He knows the U.S. Soccer Federation has a lot of money and they splashed the cash for him. I think he's gone as soon as when the U.S. inevitably crashes out of this World Cup. He's gone after this. But yeah, I mean, other than the Olympics, there's nothing really. What was really cool this year, the NHL introduced for its All-Star game a 4 nations tournament. It was the US, Canada, Sweden, and I want to say either Slovakia or Slovenia. I can't remember the fourth country, but it was amazing because it also pitted the US versus Canada in the final. So there's a rivalry. Everybody knows everybody. Like that is something, and that went over viewership for that. I think those were the most viewed NHL games, including the Stanley Cup, all season last year. It was unbelievable. So no, we don't really have a ton of opportunity to do that. But again, like you said, we're such a big country. It's if New York is playing San Francisco, there was a great graphic that was going around the internet. If you put every Major League Baseball team in the United States, overlaid the distance in Europe, the Boston Red Sox were on the western border of Kazakhstan. Like there is a huge amount of space, and it kind of makes up for us not playing and having sort of this national sort of mentality when it comes to our sports. It's very much more tribalized, but at the same time, when we still sort of find those elements, like any American hockey fan will never cheer for Toronto, Montreal, Calgary, Edmonton, or Vancouver or Ottawa to win a Stanley Cup. And it's simply to just keep the streak of no Canadian teams winning for like the last 45 years going, because we know how much it drives them crazy. That's the closest we get to something like that. But yeah, the Olympics, we get up for it every 2 years, summer and the winter. But yeah, we just don't have that sort of national collective team that everybody can get behind.
Let's all be looking forward to the old ski shooting in the next Winter Olympics. Glenn, before we move on one more time, you can answer Deluded Steve's question. How did the Brits, because you're the only Brit in this three, just for historical accuracy for everybody and political accuracy, I'm Irish. How did the Brits view the US men's national team for Deluded Steve?
It's hard to say because I've been cheering them on. I mean, I was supporting you guys at Qatar World Cup, right? I've been here for, six pushing 7 years now in a row, which is pretty crazy. So hard for me to say, but my general takeaway would just be probably indifference. Some maybe neutrality. I'm sure there'll be some fans that would just have, enjoy watching the US lose for the sake of just general political hubris. But beyond that, I think it's probably slight intrigue, slight indifference. Obviously, we've had a couple of classic Premier League icons from the States in the Premier League over the years. Less so at the minute, I think, right?
Way less.
Yeah, your Dempseys, your Bride. There's all sorts of iconic players, even Tim Howard, right? These are players that have really made a mark in the Premier League, and I think that is a moment when English fans will be like, oh, wow, he plays for Everton, or he plays for Fulham. Like, I want to see him do well. Less so now. I mean, Robertson has disappeared in a puff of smoke, but he had that kind of aura for Fulham last year. But yeah, I think difference, neutrality that maybe leans towards. It might be quite funny if they lose, but they just don't make enough of an impact, right? It's just not going to be much of a talking point, except every 4 years.
Well, and Glenn, can I jump in after Glenn real quick?
Yeah,
there are a couple players I'm really like happy that you mentioned. One of us. One of the players, and this was such a missed opportunity by the United States. Our marketing should have been around Brian McBride. Brian McBride, Chicago kid, plays the game the right way, was a tough-nosed midfielder. My dad was a coach closer to Chicago, near the North Shore suburbs, and he saw Brian McBride play in the state final for the Illinois High School Association, the IHSA. He said it was one of those things where there were 21 people on the field, and then there was Brian McBride, and but that is the type of player we need to grow. Real soccer fans will recognize, like, if you ask most knowledgeable American soccer fans, they're going to give you players like Clint Dempsey. They're going to give you Dempsey. They're going to give you McBride. They're going to give you like a Jermaine Jones, an Anye John Harkes. Yes. Those are the type, like, not a single person is going to tell you that Landon Donovan was their favorite anything. And that is what we built the castle of American soccer on. And I think it's still to our detriment. I mean, it also didn't help, again, nepotism. Bob Bradley forcing every ball to go through his son in the midfield. But we've pushed the wrong players, like what's his face? Balogun right now. Balogun should be pushed to the face of every US promotion we have. All right. He is phenomenal. He is a blast to watch. But yeah, it's just we do it all wrong. We do it all wrong. We try to be the smartest guys in the room, and it's one of those things where it's like, you know what? You just got to do it by the book. Appeal to the salt of the earth common guy, and you're going to get people backing the U.S. national team.
And what American soccer really, really needs, they need their own version of this chap here. What a hero. And then just for Glenn, because he knows on tonight, here's a great picture of your Irish manager. Let's not forget that part, with the highest hair in the world. Yeah, let's move on to the actual real stuff. Let's have a look at the league table as it stands. Arsenal top, obviously. City second. Liverpool all the way back down to 8th now after what some say would be a promising start, but those of us who look deeper than the scoreline were waiting for this to happen. It's a very there's no draws for Liverpool at all. We're either winning or losing. It's a disgraceful way to run a league defending campaign. But nevertheless, Arsenal, City, Chelsea, Sunderland doing fantastic there. Spurs where they are, and then the second half of the table, I mean, Brentford's doing really, really well there. Not, I would imagine, get to Christmas in that position, not worried about relegation at all, Glenn. And then Newcastle having the same sort of down season as Liverpool are having, only a bit more severely. Wolves mess, they're done. Forest probably done, and who knows what will happen with West Ham. But let's look at the fixtures, because that's the important one. We'll start with Glenn. Brentford against Brighton, an away game. Glenn, what does that do for you mentally? What do you think is going to be? I mean, you're going to have Nathan Collins and
Kelleher riding high.
Kelleher coming back on an absolute high. I mean, this could be the best defensive performance Brentford has all season, and he'll just have to play them two in the back and play everybody else in front. But what's your feeling on this Brighton-Brentford game?
Yeah, it should be a good watch. I mean, Brighton are still a bit of an unknown quality, aren't they? Aren't they this season? Once again, we talked about it last season on this show. I can't quite pick if this is a good Brighton team or not. I think the fan base is relatively indifferent to the manager. You just don't know. They have quality, right? I think Matoma's been a bit injured this season. Minte's a player to watch in the Premier League. He's an exciting winger. Danny Welbeck's had this kind of Phoenix-esque renaissance as a forward. He's making a genuine contention for kind of England conversations because he's an English forward who keeps scoring in the Premier League. So he should be in that conversation. But beyond that, I just do not know what to expect from Brighton. I imagine it will be quite an open game. I imagine both sides, Macca, will see this as a potential 3 points. I'd be disappointed if they both didn't. I think Brighton look at this as a home game they have to win, and Brentford should see this as a game where, we go over to the Amex and we hopefully get something positive. So, especially in the context of coming off the back of the international break, where, yes, there's people on highs, but also there's people who have just flown about 15 hours across the country, across the world. So, this weekend, after a solid international break, is always disjointed, isn't it? You always get surprise results. You always get injuries. You've seen the number of injuries kind of filtering through, like Gabriel with Arsenal's a huge one for them. Huge one. Honestly, this one could go either way. I imagine bookies' odds would be pretty 30-30-30, probably home advantage to Brighton. But I'm curious. It's one of those games I just feel kind of neutral about it. I mean, as I said before, I went to college in Brighton. I lived 2 minutes from the Amex. Like, it's not my second or third team, but they're a team that I have a lot of love for. So it's not a grudge match for me or anything. Hopefully it can be an entertaining game of football with some goals. I mean, it could win 1-0, 2-1. It's gonna be a it could go either way.
What you should do is you should hope that Keith Andrews is calling UEFA to see if they can borrow Troy Parrott from AZ Alkmaar for one. Let's look at the next one. Now, this is a big one, Sully. It's a home game against a resurgent. We're going to because he might do us a favor against Haaland is dangerous again. He's back to being dangerous. They've stopped trying to play Haaland into the Man City way and decided to do what they did a couple of years ago, which is just make everybody else play towards Erling Haaland. I mean, that's a tough one on paper, especially if your form is as it is for Newcastle. But a victory here would be a really, really good boost of confidence, wouldn't it?
I didn't watch the game, and I don't have really any context for it, but Norway beat Italy 4-1. Yeah. Was that an Italian B squad? Like, was Italy already in, or was that like full tilt Italy?
I think it was full tilt Italy, and also they've been doing very badly, and so badly that Gattuso is complaining about how hard it is for Italy to qualify for tournaments.
I did see that. But also, that dumb motherfucker on Italy, why are you pulling Haaland's ponytail? Why are you waking up the monster for the rest of the Premier League season? Like, dude, I'm very worried. Haaland looks like a man possessed right now. I am very, very nervous because our defense has been where we are struggling. Not having Livramento or Hall is killing us right now. And it's not just defensively. As much as I love Dan Burn is 6'7", and he's on his way out. He's past the good side of 30. With that being said, also, he cannot push up into the attacking spaces, and Trippier cannot push up into the attacking spaces that either those outside backs would be able to. So we're in trouble. We are in a lot of trouble. I think you almost have to play Byrne as a center back. I don't know who you're going to.
Suspended, Sully.
Oh, that's right. He got the red.
Mhm.
And he should have been sent off before that.
Just the stepping on the feet in the penalty area. One might think.
God, just and all I ask out of Newcastle this weekend is we don't play the West Ham game and the Brentford game were the exact same game. They were the exact same. I need to see something different. We're not going to win this one. I have no preconceived notions about that. It'd be nice to get a couple of goals in, like a 3-2, a 4-2 loss. I think we could handle, but we're in trouble. And Eddie needs to adapt. Eddie needs to go to the board, get into the lab for a little bit, and figure out something new. Because what he wants to do, he does not have the bodies for right now. And like we were talking about, teams have figured us out. We're trying to keep coaching a system that worked 3 years ago. Hey, teams adapt, and this is a fast-paced league. We have to try something new, but I think we are in a world of trouble this weekend. Joel Linton's not going to be 100%. Bruno's coming off a long international break. Pope is out with a concussion. I sound like a broken record. Every year it's this for Newcastle, and it's no sympathy on us, but we're in trouble. We are going to be a real issue.
Just to answer the dude at Steve's question, Jabo may be affected, or he may come back gunning for sniffing blood and gunning for some goals or assists. But Kerkez, to be fair, I don't think we could tell the difference at this point this season. So let's look at back at the games again. The big games was Arsenal Spurs. I mean, that may be the biggest one of the weekend. They certainly are going to be Liverpool Forest. Glenn and Sully, Arsenal Spurs. My feeling is that as much as everybody is falling over themselves to praise Mikel Arteta and his ultra efficiency, it has historically been proven to be a way of playing that keeps you as a bridesmaid. Leeds were famous for under Don Revie, very efficient, very cold, very clinical. They didn't win as much as Bill Shankly did, playing it out and out attacking football with high pressing. But our Spurs, and especially you, Glenn, because you know the manager more than any of us here, is Thomas Frank the man to put the dent in Arsenal's hopes?
Yeah, it might be my Tonali's pick, Macca, to be honest. I worry for Arsenal in terms of their defense, right? So Gabriel sounds like he's going to be out for a couple of weeks. Calafiore's got a knock. Timber went off with a nasty gash as well in the international break. That could be, I imagine one of them will play, but that could be a pretty decimated back line. Now, do I trust this Spurs squad? Like, not hugely, but do I trust Thomas Frank as a manager to get his tactics right, to cause an upset? Absolutely, I do.
Is the thing that Spurs have the best away record and just can't win at home as well?
Yeah,
it's almost set up for Spurs, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking too, because they're just playing this dross football at home for whatever reason. Like, the fans hate what they're watching at White Hart Lane, and then they go on the road and they just turn teams over and they look really, really decent. So yeah, I think I will throw in my Tamales pick for this one. The form of the teams away from home, as you said, Macca, the defensive issues for Arsenal, the fact they're kind of like being framed as this kind of like just this beast that's just kind of inevitably kind of slugging its way to the finish line. And it's like, it's barely, not even halfway through November. Like, as we said on this podcast before, the reason people are getting so excited about Arsenal is because of the complete lack of decent competitors, right? That is what is supercharging this kind of Arsenal mania. It's not necessarily them, and credit to them for playing a very pragmatic and effective style of football. I'm not knocking it. If that gets you the win, you take it. Great. If that gets you the title for the first one in years, you take it. But as you said, Mac, like, yeah, there is some history that if you just go pragmatic from day one and you kind of not put on the handbrakes, but you accept low scoring, defensively very sound games, like, that is difficult to sustain over like 38 games, as is out and out attacking football, right? Let's get it right. Both ways, that is difficult to sustain. But I do think But hey, genuinely, if Gabriel is out, Gabriel, who is a core part of this team at the back and in attack, right? He's winning every ball from attacking throws. He's winning every flick on from corners. If he's out for a couple of weeks, all we're waiting for with this Arsenal team is for one chink in the armor, right? And if that's their star centre back being out going into the Christmas period, we don't know yet, but it seems like a couple of weeks. That is a moment where a team like Spurs, who are coached by what I think is one of the better managers in the league, there's a real opportunity there. So I would not be surprised if Spurs nick this 1-0. I really wouldn't.
Sully, what do you think?
There we go. I like what Glenn said. I think what's driving this Arsenal hype is there aren't any challengers. Everybody else is not playing well, and they just haven't hit their rough stretch yet. I think Arsenal is still going to have a patch in the season where they go through a massive spell of losses, and it could be right now with the weakness in that back line. But I don't know if I trust Tottenham enough to be the ones to do it.
That's fair.
I just don't know if they're going to have the attacking prowess to break that line down because, like you said, they're clinical, they're disciplined, they're well coached. We'll see, but I think it's going to be a 1-0 Arsenal quick victory. I think that's all it's going to be. I don't think this will be a particularly entertaining game. I think this could be a slog to watch, given how many players have been on international break for both teams and how many of these excellent players are going to be missing. Maka, can you pull that schedule back up?
No.
Okay. I think that the Brighton Brentford game is must watch. I think that is going to be an outstanding game. I think Everton Man U is going to be outstanding, and I think Bournemouth West Ham has a lot of potential also to be very entertaining. So I know this is the biggest name game on paper, but there are a bunch of other games that are quite interesting this week, to say the least.
Well, what would your Tonali pick be? Glenn gave his at Spurs. What's yours, do you think?
Oh,
Did
boy.
You agree, or did you have a pick a different one?
I think and Sunderland's going to be favored in that game. I'm going to go Everton draw parlayed with a Burnley win against Chelsea.
Ooh, I like Burnley.
I think Chelsea, Glenn, kind of like what you said. I think I think Chelsea is going to struggle this weekend. I think they are going to have a lot of players coming back who are tired, and I think Burnley's players have gotten 2 weeks of rest and are fresh as daisies, ready to go at Stamford Bridge. So we'll see what happens, but I think Everton draw, Burnley win.
Glenn, answer this question very, very carefully, my friend.
Well, if you know me, Mac, from everything we've talked about in the last hour, Steve, I'm a fan of authentic, organic fan bases. So it would be without a doubt Liverpool, and I always enjoy it. And not just I'm not paid to say this on the channel, but I do always enjoy a strong Liverpool team. I've got a lot of love for Liverpool doing well among the bigger teams, right? So absolutely not a competition that for me.
So do we. We just hope we see one again in the next few weeks.
Glenn, I was hoping you were going to say like Leicester City or something, or one of the other cities out there. That's what I was hoping for.
Now, before we wrap it all up, the big news is there's no coffee show tomorrow, no morning coffee or tea show to mention. So if you're sitting on YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram waiting for it to happen, then you've clearly not done one of these things, which is to follow us on YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, so you'll know when these things happen, because that's what happens when you stick with the socials and do all of the subscribing and whatnot. The Thursday lads, which will be me and the other three baldy, handsome devils, will be on Thursday. Looking forward to the game against Forest. By not looking forward to the game against Forest, who knows what's going to happen now, with Sean Dyche in charge there. But it just remains to say, as the stand-in presenter, it's always a pleasure, Glenn and Sully. It's never a waste of time to be on the show with you two guys. Maybe with Jay. No, only kidding. Because he's never here. But we will see everybody next week. hopefully the Polish prince realizes he's crap at basketball and he doesn't have to do any practice for it, so he can just go and play his games. But we will be back next week. Enjoy the weekend, lads. Enjoy your games, and let's hope that it's an entertaining 1980s/1990s style of football, and not Brendan Rodgers 1,000 passes to lose 1-0. Let's not hope for that for any of us. And we just enjoy our games and get back to the real stuff. So peace out, everybody. Have a good time, and we will see you at the next one.